Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to our safe harbor. I am your host, Jane. Before we take a single step into today's journey, I want to pause and send my absolute deepest gratitude to you. Thank you for choosing to spend this precious time with me today. I know how fast the world spins, and I know how many things are demanding your attention right now. Whether you are listening to this while navigating through heavy morning traffic, doing the dishes at home, folding laundry, or simply letting yourself sink into your bed after a long, exhausting day, thank you. Wherever you are, and whatever you are doing, I hope this space brings you a deep sense of peace, clarity, and the exact medicine your heart has been waiting for. Before we dive into our topic today, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself. Have you ever had those mornings where you wake up, open your eyes, and realize that while you are technically alive, you are not truly living? Everything seems to be running on the right track. Your job is fine. You make enough money to spend, and your relationships aren't terrible. Yet, deep inside, there is a dull, lingering emptiness. You know you should change something, but you choose to just go back to sleep because waking up is too hard. If you have ever felt this way, take a deep breath. Today, we are going to talk about the truth of awakening. Waking up is not easy, but staying asleep is incredibly expensive. The cost of staying asleep doesn't hit you all at once. It isn't loud, and it doesn't make you panic. Instead, it quietly and gently drains your energy, drains your curiosity, and drains your belief that you could live as a different version of yourself. It happens so slowly that one day you look back and realize you have traded away too many years just to feel safe. There is a very strange state of being that many of us are living in right now, but we rarely give it a name. It isn't exactly sadness, it isn't exactly boredom, and it isn't clearly depression. It is just a quiet, silent exhaustion. You are tired because every day is an exact repeat of yesterday. You are tired from having to pretend that you are fine. You are tired because there is absolutely nothing in your life that makes your heart truly skip a beat. This is the very first price you pay for staying asleep. You lose your sensitivity to your own life. Let me tell you about a man named Peter. Peter works in marketing for a large tech company. His resume is beautiful, his income is stable, and his promotion path is clear. Looking from the outside, he has absolutely no reason to complain. But one day, Peter sat across from a friend, stayed silent for a very long time, and the fire in his eyes was completely gone. He said he didn't hate his job, but every single morning, he had to physically convince himself to get out of bed. This isn't laziness. This is disconnection. When a person stays asleep for too long in a life that no longer fits them, their body will speak up first. You become easily irritable, you procrastinate more, and you seek out short-term pleasures like mindlessly scrolling through your phone or buying random things. Your brain actively chooses cheap dopamine to make up for the profound lack of meaning in your life. The problem here is not that you are weak. The problem is that you are slowly betraying yourself, little by little. When he was in college, Min loved to write. He wrote blogs, small scripts, and joined creative clubs. But when it was time to work, he chose the safe path. He told himself he would write again when he was stable. Then he said he would wait another year, wait until he had a better position. And just like that, the years slipped away. The price of staying asleep isn't that you lose everything you own. It is that you slowly lose who you are. Many people think that awakening means quitting your job, making massive changes, or doing something reckless. But it isn't. Awakening, first and foremost, is simply looking straight at the truth. I am living below my capabilities. I am using a tiny percentage of my potential. Yet I am comforting myself by saying, this is enough. Think about Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks. He grew up in a poor family and watched his father be treated terribly as a manual laborer. That experience haunted him. If he had chosen to stay asleep in those circumstances, Starbucks might never have become a global brand with a philosophy centered on treating employees well. The difference wasn't that he was fearless. It was that he simply did not allow himself to live forever in that old trajectory. Staying asleep makes us used to being average. And once we are used to it, we start defending it. We criticize people who dare to try. We call them reckless and tell ourselves that we are just being realistic. But deep down, we know we are secretly jealous of their courage. Psychologically, this stems from the fear of unsafety. The human brain is designed to prioritize survival, not to maximize meaning. Any change is viewed as a risk. Therefore, staying in a job that no longer fits, maintaining a fading relationship, or continuing an unhealthy lifestyle is interpreted by the brain as stability. But stability does not mean it is right. When Peter realized he hadn't written anything for years, he wasn't shocked. He was just sad. He was sad because he remembered how vibrant and alive he used to feel when he finished writing a piece. He was sad because he had convinced himself that passion was just a luxury. The greatest cost of staying asleep is that you eventually start to believe you are no longer capable of change. You shrink your dreams so they can fit into your current comfort zone. You claim you are being realistic, but the truth is, you are terrified. And that fear, if left unacknowledged, will silently control your entire life. Awakening isn't a light switch. It usually begins with a very small question. If I keep living exactly like this for another 5 years, will I be able to stand it? If you are honest enough to answer that question, you have already started to open your eyes. But once your eyes are open, you have to face reality. And that is the hard part. There is a phase where we blame everything on our jobs. We say we are tired because of deadlines, tired of our bosses, tired of colleagues, and tired of sales pressure. It sounds reasonable, but if you are truly honest, you will realize that there are days when absolutely nothing bad happens, and yet you still feel completely exhausted. That is when exhaustion no longer comes from your workload. It comes from an internal split. Peter once believed that if he just changed companies, he would be fine. And he did. He got a higher salary, a more beautiful office, and better benefits. For the first 3 months, he felt like he had awakened. But then, everything went back to the old rhythm. He woke up with no excitement in his heart, and went home with an empty head but no real rest. When exhaustion lingers even after your external conditions have improved, the problem is no longer your environment. The problem is that you are living a version of life that does not match who you are. Psychology calls this internal mismatch. It happens when your internal values and your external behaviors do not meet. You value creativity, but you do purely repetitive work every day. You cherish freedom, but you tie yourself to a packed schedule with no room to breathe. You want to create meaning, but most of your time is spent just maintaining an existing system. Your body does not lie. It reacts with lethargy, loss of motivation, and even physical problems like headaches or insomnia. You can drink coffee, take short vacations, or take a few days off. But if the root cause isn't faced head-on, that emptiness will return. People often confuse burnout with awakening. Burnout is when you work too hard in a suitable environment. Resting properly can help you recover. But if you are working in an environment that no longer reflects your true self, no amount of rest will ever be enough. Peter started to realize this when he attended a weekend writing workshop. In just 2 short days, he said he felt more like himself than he had in the entire year prior. It wasn't because he was better than anyone else. It was simply because he was allowed to do the thing that made him feel alive. That moment didn't make him quit his job immediately. but it made it impossible for him to lie to himself anymore. Let's look at Oprah Winfrey. Before becoming a media icon, she was actually removed from her position as a news anchor because she was deemed too emotional. If she had tried to force herself to fit into that rigid, dry mold, the world might have lost one of its most influential storytellers. Instead of continuing to sleep in the wrong role, she pivoted to talk shows, where her empathy and emotions became her greatest strengths. The difference isn't whether a job is prestigious or not. It is the degree of alignment between you and what you do every day. When you are tired doing the right thing, you still find meaning. When you are tired going in the wrong direction, you just feel eroded. Often, this happens because we build our choices based on external expectations. Our families want us to be safe. Society glorifies high incomes, and friends compare job titles. Gradually, you make decisions to meet those metrics, and in the process, your inner voice gets turned down. Eventually, you can no longer hear what you actually want. You just know you are tired of maintaining an image, tired of proving yourself, and tired of continuing a story that you yourself no longer believe in. The hardest part isn't changing jobs. The hardest part is admitting that you might have chosen wrong because you were afraid of being judged. You might have prioritized the feeling of safety over true alignment. And when you realize that, you stand at a crossroads. One path is to keep blaming your circumstances, and the other is to start taking responsibility for your choices. There is a very uncomfortable paradox. You have almost everything a stable life requires, but inside, you are completely empty. You aren't lacking money to the point of daily anxiety. You aren't lonely to the point of despair. You haven't failed in the eyes of society. Yet, you still feel like you are standing outside of your own life. This is the hardest type of emptiness to name. Peter once said a sentence that sounds light, but is actually very heavy. I am not suffering, but I am not happy. When you are suffering, you know you need to escape. When you are in intense pain, you are forced to change. But when everything is just okay, you easily accept that mediocrity as a new standard. In psychology, this state is close to the feeling of existential meaninglessness, when a person no longer sees the connection between what they do and their deep inner values. It's not because life is bad, but because it no longer reflects your soul. Peter had a nice rented house in a good neighborhood, went to cafes with friends on weekends, and his social media looked perfectly fine. But he confessed that on some nights, he would turn off all the lights, lie there, and ask himself, if tomorrow repeats exactly like today for the next 10 years, will I be able to stand it? That question sent chills down his spine. Emptiness doesn't come from a lack of achievements. It comes from a lack of evolution. Humans need to feel like they are growing. When you stop learning, stop challenging yourself, and stop expanding your limits, your brain falls into stagnation. And stagnation brings a sense of meaninglessness. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Nazi concentration camps, wrote that humans can endure almost any circumstance if they find meaning in it. He wasn't talking about comfort. He was talking about meaning. This explains why some people work incredibly hard but still feel vibrant, while others live in plush comfort, yet feel entirely depleted. When you have invested many years into a certain path, admitting that it no longer fits becomes very difficult. You are afraid of wasting time, afraid of what others will think, and afraid to start over. So, you choose to adjust your expectations instead of adjusting your direction. You tell yourself that everyone grows up and feels this way, that passion is only for the young, and that stability is what matters. Those phrases sound very logical, but if you listen closely, you will realize they are just self-comforting lies. Prolonged emptiness makes people seek temporary fillers. We consume more, entertain ourselves more, and boast about our achievements more. But it's like eating sweets when you are starving. It makes you forget the lack for a moment, but it nourishes absolutely nothing in the long run. Look at the famous actor Jim Carrey. He reached the absolute peak of fame and financial success in Hollywood, but he also openly spoke about periods of deep depression. Success does not automatically bring meaning. If you do not feel connected on the inside, everything on the outside is just an empty shell. Peter realized he was living on inertia, going to work in the morning because he was used to it, resting at night because he was tired, and entertaining himself on weekends to relieve stress. Everything made sense, but nothing truly made his heart flutter. This feeling of emptiness isn't loud. It's like being in a room lacking oxygen. You are still there, still breathing, but your breaths are no longer deep. The root cause is the loss of conscious choice. When you live on inertia for too long, you forget that you ever had the right to choose. You let circumstances, expectations, and habits decide for you. And gradually, you forget who you are outside of your current roles. Many people think awakening is a sudden flash of light, a book that instantly changes your life, or a massive event that turns you 180 degrees. But in reality, awakening rarely comes like a lightning bolt. It comes as a tiny crack in your old way of thinking, repeating over and over until you can no longer ignore it. Peter waited for a grand moment. He thought a day would come when it was just too much to bear, and he would finally quit his job and start over. But that day never came. Everything remained just okay enough for him to continue, and precisely because it was okay enough, he remained stuck. The truth is, awakening usually starts with discomfort, a lingering question, a mismatched feeling, a night where you suddenly don't want to open your laptop even though there is work to do. It isn't intense. It is just persistent. When our behavior and values don't align, our brains try to adjust one of them to reduce the stress. The easiest way is to lower our values. You once wanted to be creative, but then told yourself creativity isn't practical. You once wanted freedom, but then told yourself stability is more important. You don't change your life. You change how you look at your dreams. That is not maturity. That is a defense mechanism. True awakening begins when you stop explaining things away and start listening. Listen to the discomfort instead of silencing it. Listen to your jealousy instead of denying it. Because sometimes, what you are jealous of is exactly what you secretly desire. Look at Steve Jobs. He was fired from the very company he founded. From the outside, it was a massive failure. But in his famous Stanford speech, he shared that the time he was ousted from Apple was actually the most creative period of his life. His awakening wasn't a sudden leap. It was a process of trial, error, and starting over. The common trait among people who truly change isn't that they have one moment of brilliant enlightenment, but that they dare to follow small signs even when they don't have a clear map. Peter started changing very quietly. He didn't quit his job or announce a new journey. He just went back to writing one short article a week. At first, he felt awkward, like he was back at the starting line, but he also felt a little less paralyzed. Awakening isn't abandoning everything immediately. It is the process of reconnecting with the part of you that was left behind. And that process is often slow, quiet, and full of contradictions. Some days you are very clear, and some days you just want to run back to safety. The main reason people don't finish this process is that they demand certainty. They want to know that if they change, they will be successful. But life doesn't work that way. You can only see the path clearly once you have walked a certain distance. Awakening is not an event. It is a repeated commitment to yourself. Every time you choose to be a little more honest, every time you don't run away from real emotions, every time you allow yourself to try a small thing instead of procrastinating indefinitely, you are waking up. When we talk about change, most people think they are afraid of failing, losing money, or being laughed at. It sounds logical, But if you look deeper, the greatest fear is often not failure. The greatest fear is facing a different truth. If I try and I succeed, I will no longer have an excuse to hide. Failure is sometimes a safe hiding place. Peter admitted that he was afraid to write again because he feared no one would read it, and he wasn't good enough. But when asked, "What if your writing is well received?" he went silent. He finally admitted that what made him more anxious was that if he wrote well, he would be forced to make a serious choice between his current job and his creative path. And that choice was truly terrifying. Success brings responsibility. When you stay asleep, you can blame your circumstances. You can say you didn't have the opportunity, the timing wasn't right, or the conditions weren't perfect. But when you start doing it and realize you are capable, you can no longer hide behind those excuses. You have to ask yourself, do I dare to go further? This fear goes so deep because it touches your identity. If you change, you become a different person, which means leaving behind the familiar version of yourself, even if that version wasn't making you happy. Psychology calls this the fear of losing your old identity. We cling to the stories we have told about ourselves for years. I am a stable person. I'm not the artistic type. I am not good at business. Those labels create a false sense of certainty. Think about Michael Jordan. He was cut from his high school basketball team. Instead of taking that as proof he wasn't good enough, he used it as motivation to train harder. But what few people discuss is that if he hadn't dared to continue, he would have had a perfectly valid excuse to quit. Initial failure can become a shelter, but he chose not to stay there. The fear of success is silent. Success forces you to step into the light, forces you to live up to your potential, and forces you to stop pretending that you are smaller than you actually are. This often stems from past experiences. Maybe you were mocked for being different, pulled down when you stood out, or taught that settling is safe. Your brain remembers those wounds and tries to protect you by keeping you average. Not too bad, but not too outstanding. Awakening in this phase doesn't mean eliminating the fear. It means accepting that the fear will walk with you. You don't wait until the fear has gone to take a step. You step forward even while you are trembling. The fascinating thing is, when you dare to face your potential, the fear slowly loses its power over you. Not because it disappears, but because you no longer believe the old story. You aren't afraid that you can't do it. You are afraid that if you can do it, you will have to live differently. There is a time in our lives when we believe that if we just reach a certain milestone, everything will be fine. Reaching a specific salary, buying a house, getting a management title. We attach our happiness to clear destinations, as if success is the final answer to all our internal confusion. But then, people reach those milestones and still feel empty. Peter set a goal to become a team leader before he turned 30. When he got the promotion, he was happy. His friends congratulated him. His family was proud, and his social media was buzzing. But just a few weeks later, the excitement faded. He had more work, more responsibility, and the old question returned. Now what? When success doesn't bring the fulfillment we expected, we panic. Psychology has a concept called hedonic adaptation. Humans adapt to new levels of comfort very quickly. What once made us happy becomes normal. And then we need an even higher goal to feel excited. This loop can go on forever if we don't stop and ask what we are actually running toward. Look at Andre Agassi, the former world #1 tennis player. In his autobiography, he admitted that he actually hated tennis for many years, despite reaching the absolute pinnacle of the sport. He won massive titles and lived in the spotlight, but inside he was completely empty because he was pursuing that career mostly to meet his father's expectations. Success cannot fix an initial wrong direction. This doesn't mean success is worthless. It just means that if success is not tied to your core values, it will never fill the void inside you. When success is no longer the answer, you are forced to return to the question of meaning. What impact do you want to make? What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want your everyday to look like? The reason people keep chasing success even when they are exhausted is that they are terrified of the empty space that comes when they stop. If there is no external goal to cling to, they have to face themselves. And facing yourself is sometimes much harder than running for another few years. You have to separate your achievements from your identity. Your job title does not define your entire being. You can be a great marketer and also a writer starting from scratch. Those two things don't cancel each other out. When you stop placing your entire self-worth on external success, you become less afraid of losing it, and you become free to choose. Instead of asking, "What did I achieve today?" try asking, "How much did I live true to what I believe today?" You might suddenly realize you have climbed a very tall ladder, only to find it is leaning against the wrong wall. Most of us don't explicitly say we are afraid of change. We choose a softer approach. We say we will wait a little longer. We wait until we have more money, until we are less busy, until we are more confident, until everything is crystal clear. Take it slow sounds so reasonable, and because it sounds reasonable, we don't even realize we are procrastinating. The most dangerous procrastination is the kind that wears the disguise of caution. This chain of waiting a little longer can stretch for years. Procrastination survives because it helps us keep a positive image of ourselves. We haven't given up on our dreams. We have just postponed them. As long as we have the intention, we feel like we haven't completely betrayed ourselves. Psychology calls this the intention behavior effect. Just by planning or talking about a plan, the brain gets a partial sense of completion. You buy books, sign up for online courses, and save inspirational posts. You feel like you are preparing, but you are actually investing more in the outer edges of your dream than in the core of it. The author Elizabeth Gilbert once shared that fear always appears when she starts a new project, but she doesn't wait until the fear is gone to right. She puts the fear in the back seat, and she keeps driving. If she had waited until she felt completely ready, her books might never have been born. The truth is, you will rarely feel fully ready, because the feeling of readiness usually comes after you have started, not before. Waiting for the perfect plan is a sophisticated excuse to avoid facing uncertainty. Every time you say, "I'll wait," you are prioritizing your current comfort over your long-term growth. Procrastination doesn't cause immediate pain. You still have your income and your familiar schedule, but your inner confidence wears down every time you make a promise to yourself and break it. You start doubting your ability to change, not because you lack talent, but because you have proven to yourself too many times that you won't take action. No one wakes up in the morning and actively decides to betray themselves. No one chooses to live a life that feels alien to them. It happens quietly. A small compromise here, a moment of silence when you should have spoken up, a decision to choose safety over emotional honesty. Over time, those tiny choices pile up into a massive gap between the person you truly are and the person you are living as. The greatest betrayal is not giving up on your dream. It is continuously denying your own internal signals. We are taught from a young age to adjust our behavior to get love and approval. We take that mechanism into adulthood. We choose majors to make our families feel secure. We pick prestigious jobs, and we live uncontroversial lives. External standards become our main ruler, and our inner voice is muted. Think of the legendary artist Vincent van Gogh. While he was alive, he was not widely recognized and sold very few paintings. If he had painted only to meet market tastes and seek immediate approval, we would not have his deeply moving, iconic works today. He chose to stay true to his vision, even though the price was profound loneliness and hardship. Not everyone can walk that exact path, but his story proves that betraying yourself in exchange for acceptance does not guarantee happiness. We are so afraid of being separated from the group, afraid of being misunderstood, and afraid of losing what we've built. So we say, "I'm fine," too much. When colleagues ask if we are overloaded, we say, "I'm fine." When family asks if we are happy, we say, "I'm fine." Every "I'm fine" is another time we dodge our complicated reality. Self-betrayal doesn't make you ache immediately. It makes you numb. You feel less excitement and less disappointment. Everything becomes flat, and because it is flat, you think you are stable. But underneath, your vitality is thinning out. The hardest thing to face when you realize you have betrayed yourself is the feeling of regretting the years you could have lived differently. But if you get stuck in regret, you just start another loop. You must learn to be honest again, little by little. You don't need a grand declaration. Just stop saying, "I'm fine," out of habit when you are truly not. Eventually, the question is no longer "should I change?" The question becomes, what kind of pain do you choose? Do you choose the pain of stepping out of your comfort zone, or the lifelong, dull ache of knowing you never dared to truly live? The pain of change is sharp and clear. You have to learn again. Accept that you aren't good at something new. Face doubting eyes, and step into uncertainty. It might make you flinch, but the pain of staying asleep is different. It isn't fierce. It repeats every single morning when you open your eyes and feel zero excitement. It appears every time you see someone living true to their beliefs, and a flash of jealousy hits your heart. It sits with you in the evenings when you ask yourself, what if? This pain doesn't make you cry. It makes you go silent. Our brains are programmed to avoid immediate danger, so we often choose short-term comfort, even when we know it will lead to long-term regret. Look at Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. When she was young, she was constantly rejected while working as a salesperson. She could have chosen a safer job to avoid the pain of failure, but she accepted repeated rejection as part of her journey. If she had avoided that short-term, sharp pain, her global brand would never have existed. You don't have to start a massive business to apply this. The question is just about honesty. Which pain are you avoiding? The sharp pain of trying has an end, and it builds you up. The dull pain of staying asleep has no end point. You can live with it for 10 or 20 years, perfectly fulfilling your duties and being praised for your stability. But deep in a hidden corner, you will know you compromised entirely too much. People choose the dull pain because it doesn't disturb the surface of their lives. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone, but when you are alone, you know the truth. Awakening means realizing that no choice is completely painless. The only question is, which pain helps you grow, and which pain makes you shrink? The fear of taking action decreases over time, but the regret of not taking action only accumulates. After all the analysis, the fears, and the questions, the most important thing is not how much you understand, but what you do next. It doesn't require a massive decision or a spectacular turn. It just takes one step real enough that you stop saying, "I'll do it later." Peter didn't quit his job. He simply committed to a specific, non-negotiable time frame each week to write. He didn't wait for free time or inspiration. He treated it like a crucial meeting. He made a gentle public commitment to just one close friend, ensuring he had someone to hold him accountable. And he measured his success by his actions, not the results. Instead of asking how many views he got, he simply asked, "Did I finish it this week?" This is not a magic formula. It is just grounding your intentions into reality. The author James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, didn't start with the goal of writing a bestseller. He started by consistently writing short articles, building a habit. Power doesn't lie in one massive decision. It lies in small, consistent repetitions. If you don't take small steps, you prove to yourself that you won't change. But when you do take them, a quiet, sturdy confidence returns. If you are standing on the boundary between waking up and staying asleep, do not ask yourself how to change your entire life today. Ask yourself, what is one small thing I can do this week that reflects the person I truly want to become? Maybe it is sending out a resume for a job you've hesitated on. Maybe it is signing up for a class. Or maybe it is just sitting alone for 30 minutes, without any screens, to write down what you actually want. When you start small but start for real, you send a new message to yourself. I am no longer choosing the dull ache. I accept a little difficulty so I can live more clearly. Awakening is not easy, but once you start, you will finally understand why staying asleep was always the much more expensive choice. We aren't promising to change you overnight, but becoming just 1% better every day is enough, so that a year from now, you will look back and realize you are no longer in that deep sleep. Let's take a deep breath and bring all of these truths together. Staying asleep in a life that doesn't fit you will cost you your vitality, your passion, and eventually, yourself. The emptiness you feel isn't because you are ungrateful. It is your soul knocking on the door, telling you that you are living below your potential. You have to stop letting the fear of success, the fear of judgment, and the habit of procrastination dictate your path. You must choose the sharp, brief pain of stepping into the unknown over the endless, dull ache of a life unlived. And you do this not by destroying your life overnight, but by making small, deeply honest commitments to yourself, starting right now. Before we close our time together today, I want to leave you with one final question to carry in your heart. You are standing at the crossroads of two types of pain: the sharp pain of growing and the dull ache of staying the same. Which pain are you choosing today? What is one small step, just 1%, that you will take this week to wake up? Take a gentle breath and reflect on that. If you feel safe and ready to do so, please share your thoughts, your chosen step, or your story in the comments below. I am always here, reading and holding space for your beautiful journey. Thank you, once again, for giving me the profound privilege of your time today. By listening to this, you just gave your mind a gift that no one else could give it. You chose to speak to yourself with love, and you chose to wake up. If this podcast brought you comfort, clarity, or a spark of courage, please save this episode to listen to on those mornings when you feel the urge to go back to sleep. And don't forget to hit the subscribe or follow button so we can keep growing 1% at a time together. Be deeply kind to yourself today. This is Jane, saying goodbye, and I will see you next time.